Today, we're going to dive into a section of the Quran that was revealed during a really intense moment of crisis. And what's amazing is that it becomes this powerful story about faith, about failure, and most importantly, about how to recover. It offers these timeless lessons on what it really takes to build a resilient community.
And this one verse right here, it basically sets the stage for everything we're about to discuss. It's this radical idea of what faith really is. It's not just about giving charity from your spare change. The argument is that true piety, true righteousness, isn't found in just following rules or going through rituals. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice. It's about loving God more than the things you love most in this world.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into what this true righteousness actually looks like. Then we'll look at the community's spiritual anchor. After that, we get to the absolute heart of the story, a major military defeat. And finally, we'll unpack the incredible lesson on unity that comes out of that whole crisis.
Okay, so building on that idea of sacrifice, the text immediately sets a really high bar. It's making the case that righteousness isn't just about what you do on the outside, it's all about what's going on in your heart.
And you can see this sharp contrast being drawn right here. The commentary on these verses explains this was a critique of this kind of excessive legalism that was happening at the time, where an outward show of piety could actually be hiding greed and selfishness. The text says, no, that's not it. True righteousness is something totally different. It's an internal change, a love for God so deep that it outweighs your love for anything you own. So once that principle of internal faith is established, the text then pivots to something really practical. It starts defending a core practice of the community that was actually being challenged at the time. So here's what was going on. The early Muslim community had changed its direction of prayer, its Qibla, from Jerusalem to the Kaaba in Makkah. And this was a huge deal. People were questioning it. But the Quran's defense isn't about creating something new. It's about returning to something ancient. And the argument is laid out so clearly with this historical context. According to the commentary and tradition, the Kaaba, which was built by Abraham, actually predates Solomon's temple in Jerusalem by almost 1,000 years. So in praying towards it, the community wasn't innovating at all. They were actually returning to what the text presents as the oldest, most original center of monotheistic worship. All right, so with those foundations of faith and history laid out, we get to the dramatic center of the whole story. And this isn't a theoretical discussion anymore. This is about how faith holds up under the incredible pressure of defeat and loss. So the Battle of Uhud, it starts off as this amazing success. Even though they were outnumbered more than 4-1, the Muslims were winning. They pushed the enemy back. It really seemed like God's promise of victory was happening right there in front of them. But then, in the heat of the moment, a huge mistake happens. A group of archers had been given a direct, explicit order by the Prophet Muhammad, do not leave your post, no matter what happens. But they saw the enemy retreating, and they saw their own army collecting the spoils of war. And fearing they'd miss out, they disobeyed that order and rushed down the hill. And that one moment of weakness was all the enemy needed. Their brilliant cavalry commander, Khalid ibn al-Walad, saw the opening, wheeled his forces around the mountain, and just slammed into the Muslim army from behind. The surprise was just devastating. The Muslim lines completely broke, chaos erupted, and what looked like a certain victory turned into a sudden painful defeat. The community was left completely shocked, wounded, and facing a massive crisis of faith. You can just imagine, right? In the aftermath, this was the question on everybody's mind. They were fighting for God. His messenger was right there with them. How could this possibly have happened? They were searching for answers, trying to make sense of this disaster. And this is so crucial. The divine response that comes down, it doesn't blame some external force. It turns the mirror right back on the community itself. The text is incredibly blunt. This calamity has been brought about by yourselves. And then it lists their mistakes, which honestly read like a timeless lesson in what not to do. Their impatience, disobeying a direct command, arguing amongst themselves, and getting tempted by worldly things. But here's the twist. This wasn't just a punishment. The text completely reframes the event. It wasn't a sign that God had abandoned them. No, it was a trial, a really difficult, painful test that was designed to purify the community. It was meant to sift the true believers, the ones with sincere faith, from the hypocrites who were really only there when things were going well.
So after this incredibly raw and honest breakdown of what went wrong, the text gives the solution. How does a community possibly recover from a setback like that?
And the answer comes in this really powerful metaphor, the cable of Allah. The commentary explains that this isn't just a rope connecting you up to God, it's also the bond that connects all the believers to each other. It's their shared faith, their common purpose, it's their lifeline. This verse is the core prescription. It commands them, hold on to that cable, together, and do not let go. And to remind them just how powerful it is, it asks them to remember their own very recent history. I mean, before Islam, the tribes in Medina were locked in these bitter, bloody wars. It was this exact cable of faith that had turned them from enemies into brothers. And right alongside that command for unity comes this incredible message of hope. This is direct reassurance to a community that is just reeling from defeat. It's telling them, hey, setbacks are not the end of the story. Ultimate victory isn't about one battle. It's determined by the sincerity of your faith and your ability to stick together and persevere. And so, the text ends by zooming all the way out, from this one specific crisis in history to a timeless question for every single one of us. It pushes us to reflect on the world, to believe that nothing just happens for no reason. And the final challenge it leaves us with is this: are we actually looking for the lessons, the signs, and the deeper meaning in the events of our own lives?